Good day, everyone. Good day, everyone, and thank you for being here today with Pro Quality community. My name is Vyacheslav, and today we will talk about test cases migration. And in the very beginning, we prepared a warm-up question for you. So we kindly ask you to join our session. The instructions that you can see on the screen. So please use your web browser or mobile phone to join our Minty.com session. Okay, I see that at least one person has joined us, so let's wait for you guys. You can use your browser and go to minty.com and enter the code that you can see on the screen, or just scan QR code using your mobile device. You can use both devices. Okay, thank you. 5, 6 persons. Okay, cool. So let's move on. Thank you. Cool. And the question will be quite easy and simple. So please share information with us. What test management system you are using right now in your project or in your company? Okay, Jira. QA space X-ray. Okay. So Jira, it's more like backtracking system, I suppose. Yeah. Azure. Okay. Zephyr. Okay. TestRail. X-ray. Okay. So let's wait for more responses. So we can see that there are a lot of test management systems here. The systems that are used for test cases, test planning. Yeah, so we see here at least TestRail. We will talk about it today. So yeah, thank you for your answers. And now I'm delighted to introduce our speakers today. Not just one, but 3 expert speakers, Maksim, Yuri, and Kiryl, joining us today. Guys, thank you for coming in. And let me pass my word to you. The stage is yours, and we are waiting for your experience sharing and lesson learned. Let's get started.
Hello everyone. My name is Kiryl, and today I will share with you some project context. And let's start from agenda. Today we will give a little context about our project, share pros and cons of QA-based test management tool for us, how we initiated tool replacement, how we investigated different options, also what we did to replace it, and how adoption passed. And at the end, we will give you a summary that is built in kind of checklist for everyone who will be in the similar situation with tool replacement. So let's start briefly with project context. Let's begin that 6 years ago, we had a successful development and grown project for 4 years in workforce management domain. At that moment, it was a web application with some specific hardware and third-party integrations. It was only 5 Scrum teams allocated in the United States and Belarus with deep cross-dependencies in scope. So we've got about 100 plus companies with unique configurations, about 500 API auto tests, absence of automation, UI automation at this moment, and more or less 3,000 manual test cases. And for this reason, our requests while choosing a test management tool were more related to making it budget-friendly and preferably free, with easy customization and possibility for quick launch around the teams. And now I'm going to walk you through our choice and its pros and cons on the following slides. So, therefore, during the search, our choice fell on QA-based test management tool, which generally met our needs at that time. In a nutshell, QA-Space is a single Jira test management plugin implemented by PAM team with continuous improvements. And so let's walk through the QA-Space pros and cons in context of our project. And let's start from pros and emphasize one of the biggest advantages of QA-Space, that it's free, no subscription fees, no hidden cost. You can just download it and receive the test tool that gives you the required minimum for the test cases maintenance from the scratch. Next point is that QA-Space has a full integration with Jira, which means that you can connect the two tools and get the best of both worlds. With QA-Space, you can track your testing progress directly from Jira. This means that you can see which test cases are associated with Jira issue, and you can update the status of test cases directly from Jira. One more important thing that should be mentioned is that QA-Space contains all the basic features that you need to manage your testing process effectively. This means that you can start using QA-Space right away without having to learn a lot of new features. And last but not least is QA-Space user-friendly interface, which makes it easy for users to get started and to use the tool effectively. The interface is clear, concise, and well organized with a variety of features that make it easy for users to get the most out of the tool. But all these advantages pretty quickly became not so significant, and that's why over the time we have grown in the number of teams and employees, and what is even more important, we have significantly increased in the number of test cases. If once we've started with QA-Space, 5 teams and 3,000 of test cases, then within 4 years our test system grew up to 60 thousands of manual test cases that was maintained by more than 30 teams and has more than 5,000 companies with unique configurations. Likewise, eventually from release to release, from year to year, we show decent growth of automation tests because in addition to API automation tests, we've started effectively using the UI automation and therefore increased our automation tests to about 41,000 of API tests and 16,000 of UI automation tests. All these changes that have been accumulating have resulted in cons of using QA-Space for our continuously growing project and further led to different not pleasant consequences that caused us to start changing tool process. So, cons of QA-Space. Firstly, its performance. QA-Space performance can be a problem for large-scale projects with thousands of test cases. This is because the tool can be slow to load, import test cases, copy test cases, and generate reports. For example, if one person is importing test case, other team members may not be able to use the tool. Also, this can make it difficult for teams to collaborate and manage their testing process effectively. And moreover, depending on the number of test cases, import can take up to 40 minutes. That's why some teams performed this at night when there are minimum users in the tool. Secondly, QA-Space lacks built-in reporting capabilities, which can be a major inconvenience for team that need to generate reports on their test results on a regular basis. Specifically, QA-Space doesn't provide any built-in way to generate statistics on test cases or to do deep analysis of test cases run. This can make it difficult for teams to identify areas where their testing needs improvement. Also, we faced a big deal with activity audit and no restart function. QA-Space doesn't let you undo accidental deletions or track user activity. For example, if you accidentally delete a test case that you're working on, you'll have to recreate it from scratch. This can be time-consuming and can lead to data loss or data corruption, which can have a negative impact on the testing process. Also, if there is no user audit, it can be difficult to track who has edited test cases and when. This can also increase the risk of safety of the data. And finally, our project version had no API for integration with other tools, such as Report Portal and Jenkins. Unfortunately, without this integration, it was not possible to run automation from the tool and to automatically get the results of automated tests and see all the results of manual and automated tests in one place. This also has caused difficulties with tracking the overall progress of testing and coverage accuracy. All these major for us cons led us to some crucial consequences. Firstly, it was big delay with regression testing. Usually it was like situation when 100 plus testers have started working within QA space simultaneously. And due to mentioned cons with performance, just imagine the chaos that happened within system when all teams started import or export of test cases, creation or copying them into test runs or trying to make updates and so forth. That led us to an actually a common occurrence with 2-3 days delay of the start of regression testing. And this become a real problem. Therefore, teams have tight deadlines for regression testing. Next thing we've attempted to solve was weak functionality in terms of statistical accounting of test cases available in the test library, test runs, and subsequent visualization of the statistics. Simply put, we had no accurate coverage stats due to missing statistics, at least in automation field, because speaking of which, almost 48% of API and UI automation tests were not added and not taken into account while collecting the coverage. As a result, we've got firstly no overall picture of testing status and the impossibility of collecting specific statistics on the team that own a specific scope into relay automation stats. Then it was lack of visibility into testing progress. Thirdly, inability to identify trends and difficulties with communication of test results. And finally, it increased the manual effort. So, and the last thing is double work due to mentioned cons. With not being fail-safe and absence of restore function, teams faced the one more consequence that led them firstly to keep their test cases locally, and currently almost impossible to see the full picture of number of test cases that we have, evaluate if they are up to date, and in general work with them. Once we also face a situation when almost 2,000 of test cases were accidentally deleted by one of our engineers, and as you can guess, it was very, very sad. And secondly, we should always be aware about accountability, because there was no way to track who has changed or modified test cases. So you have to compare the versions after each backup to check if there were any changes or test cases were totally deleted. So that's it about pros and cons and consequences. And Maksim, the floor is yours.
All right, so considering consequences that Kiryl mentioned, due to issues with test management tool, we decided to initiate replacement. It was clear that we need to look for another tool, but it was not clear how. And here we come to so-called phase one, that we named initiation. We started with building a team who would drive the initiative to replace the tool. It was self-organized team of 5 engineers and leads from our project, representing each location, India, Belarus, and US, to cover all points of view and simplify adoption later in their locations, and also build collaboration across different teams. Then we identified stakeholders. It was more than 100 teammates, from test engineers to program managers, different groups of people with different needs and different use cases. And we came up with a plan how to transfer of 30 teams to a new test management tool within 6 months. And this is a plan which is pretty simple. First of all, investigation, select a tool that fits our requirements. then implementation, deploy it, migrate test cases, define process, how to work with it, and adoption, onboard teams, and start using it. Sounds straightforward, but with our scale, there could be a lot of pitfalls and gray areas that we missed, and they were. So let's go through investigation stage. Our plan was the following. Start with gathering requirements to understand what we need, then work on high-level evaluation to select tools for the next stage, which is deep evaluation, to shortlist tools and have summary about them, to demo selected tools and choose the best match. So gather requirements. Let's go through the details. To get requirements, we started with polling stakeholders that were identified during initiation. It included engineers who are writing, executing test cases, leads who supervision the process around test cases and detailed results of execution, and managers who are interested in results of execution and statistics on a high level. Also, we considered current use cases. So as the team that's responsible for tools investigation consisted of engineers and leads, and we had hands-on experience with current test case management process and knew how it was used, what functionality is important, what we would like to keep as was, so we considered this experience as well. So we incorporated these points into requirements. Also, one more very important point to cover gaps that we had in the tool. So we were looking for desired features to improve user experience and have extra benefit of new test management system. This is high-level list of requirements that we came up with. Real list is much bigger. I just will highlight some important groups. So from the left to the right, integration with Jira Confluence to link test cases with Jira tickets, mention test case on Wiki, and build some statistic around them, again, on Wiki and Confluence, on Confluence and Jira. Test automation integration to link test cases with Autotest and trigger test execution from tool. Performance, to have ability to run regression with thousands of test cases by thousands of engineers. Import-export for smooth migration, reporting, execution, run, easy of use with options like drag and drop, test case review, test case templates, and others, and flexible search by different options, and some other less important groups. So later, during tool evaluation, requirements were adjusted a bit, and I will mention that soon. So on this stage, we understood our expectations from desired tool, and we started investigation of the tools on market and evaluated them on high level to find those that could cover our needs. To find the tool, we relied on previous experience of initiative group and some investigation. So we Googled test management tools, looked into internal EPAM reports. We have competency center that holds statistic of the tools usage among our projects, and we looked for external reports and analytics. With these tools, we checked features, watched demo, evaluated whether they fit requirements in a high level, for example, integration or performance. And on this stage, one critical requirement appeared, price and license model. We thought that there could be a free solution, but for our scale, only paid tools could fit, and they're expensive. I will show it later. So in total, we checked about 20 different tools, paid and free, and it's appeared that many tools do not fit scale of our testing, even paid. So among all tools that we checked, we selected 5 that fit our requirements on high level, and it's worth to spend some time on deep evaluation. Which means that we shortlisted tools and could go to the next stage, which is deep evaluation. So with these 5 tools, we made deep evaluation to understand pros and cons and in details whether these tools fit our requirements. So how we evaluated? Again, we watched demo. Also, we installed the tool and used it to create test case, initiate test execution, configure integration with Jira, create test report. So we tried it in a way how users would use it. Based on the result, we filled in requirements matrix with values from 1 to 5 for each requirement to evaluate the fitness. Also, as a summary, we listed pros and cons of each tool. And now, based on that info, we excluded those that do not fit requirements. This table is example of what we had as a high-level result of investigation. You will be able to take a look in details later. We will send this slide, this with a slide deck after the event. Just on a high level, for each tool, we had total count of requirements evaluation, as I mentioned, from 1 to 5 values for each requirement. Also, price data. For example, HP asks about $70,000 per year for license, and pros and cons. And this is the final list of tools. So, based on summary table, HP was removed because it's very expensive and appeared to be slow again for our scale. And the Zephyr plugin is just a plugin, so it has limited functionality. So we decided to exclude this as well. So with these 3 remaining tools, we were ready to continue. And we demoed them to stakeholders. In parallel, we included procurement team who investigated license model, price, and terms and conditions. And on this stage, we involved security team, which appeared to be a bit late, as it took some time and it was risked that some tool might be declined. So they made their investigation in terms of security as well. And based on the feedback from stakeholders after demo, including approval from procurement and security teams, TestRail was selected. So in general, it fit our requirements a lot. It's appeared to be a balanced tool for our organization, our size, and process in terms of pros and cons, and price as well. So tool is selected, and here we come to the next phase, implementation. And I pass word to Yuri, who will explain how we did that.
Yeah, thank you, Maksim. Hello, everyone. The next stage of the transition to a new test management tool was related to deploying TestRail, configuring it, working out the details on all business processes, and using the tool and onboarding teams. I was a part of the team that was involved into this initiative. I'd like to share all steps and actions we did during this phase. So the entire process consisted of multiple stages, starting from assembling the team responsible for the implementation and ending with monitoring tool adoption within teams. I will provide details around each stage. Jumping ahead, I want to mention that at our scale, it took 5 months to go through all these stages. In a smaller project, of course, it can be done more quickly. So we began with forming a team responsible for the implementation. Important criteria for selecting candidates were their willingness and availability to work on this activity. Consider it's a separate sub-project running in parallel with regular project tasks. We also aim to include specialists from different teams and even value streams. This way, we intended to have engineers with varying levels of experience in working with tests and test models. Our goal was to create a tool that would be user-friendly and suitable for all teams. Additionally, from the very beginning, we understood type of tasks ahead of us. In its sub-project management, test case migration, and teams training. Based on this, we selected specialists with the required skill set. As a result, we assembled a team of 4 engineers at the lead and manager level. The team worked on the implementation for 5 months. Each member spent approximately 50 hours per month to these activities. The next step for us was the planning stage. We clarified stakeholders for the processes, formed a roadmap with all necessary tasks, milestones, identified dependencies, deadlines for each task, and assigned responsibilities. We agreed on a schedule for sync-up meetings and began working on this project. The next stage I called the TestRail rollout. Since we had chosen the cloud version of TestRail during the tool assessment stage, it simplified the process of deploying TestRail for us. Essentially, we were provided with an instance of TestRail created for us, which we need to configure to meet our requirements. I would like to note that during the configuration of the integrations, we required assistance from the client's IT department. The first integration was the setup of single sign-on. We wanted user authentication to create using SSO on the client side. The second integration was with Jira. It allowed us to create links between tests and Jira tickets, such as bugs, stories, and so on. It can be created automatically, defects can be created automatically from TestRail, and execution results can be reflected into Jira tickets. In this case, we need to install an additional plugin on the Jira side. Therefore, it's important to coordinate with client's IT department to avoid issues during the tool setup. In addition to that, we made several settings and customizations, which I will explain further. The whole configuration process can be divided into 4 parts: user management setup, repository structure setup, test library structure designing, and test case structure defining. We started with configuring the user registration process as well as roles and permissions. As I mentioned earlier, we set up SSO authentication. The registration process was designed in such a way that after SSO authentication, a new user was automatically registered in TestRail and read-only permissions were assigned to him. Additionally, we created 8 different roles in TestRail within various permission configurations. These roles were based on the role and tasks performed by users, by different specialists on the project. We provided recommendations for choosing the appropriate role in TestRail based on the tasks that the user would need to perform. In addition to these roles, we choose 3 administrators from the implementation team who would be involved into configuring and supporting the tool. We also configured a user retention process. If a user didn't log into TestRail for more than 180 days, his account would be deactivated and his license would be revoked from him. On the left side of the slide, you can see all roles that were created. And on the right side of the slide, you can see the set of permissions for the most popular role, QA. Jumping ahead, I can say that the user management process we implemented proved to be very convenient and efficient. It's fully automated, except of the step when the necessary role should be assigned to a user after registration. The next fundamental aspect is setting up TestRail is the choice of project settings and type of repository structure. TestRail allows to create multiple test projects, and each project can be configured differently. Each project contains its own test repository. I'd like to say that our product is a monolith application released by a single package. For this reason, we decided to store our test cases in a single shared project in TestRail. However, if your project consists of multiple independent products or modules, which with their own separate release cycles, it's advisable to create a separate TestRail projects for each such product or module. In such case, it will be more convenient to manage project settings, have separate execution milestones and processes. Regarding the structure of the TestRail repository within the project, there are also variations. Tests can be stored in a single suite or multiple suites. For simpler business and application architecture scenarios, a single suite library is suitable. In our case, we chose a multi-suite library because our product consists of subsystems that are often isolated from each other, and different teams worked on each of these subsystems. Therefore, it's more convenient to store tests for such subsystems separately. Furthermore, we carefully planned the structure of test case library. Our product is divided into products and components. This division is also reflected in Jira, meaning that all stories, bugs, and other tickets are associated with a specific combination of a product and a component. Team's ownership within the product is also organized around products and components. For this reason, we implemented the same division in TestRail. In other words, we created approximately 30 test suites that corresponded to products. Within each suite, we created sections that corresponded to components within the product. On the left side of the slide, you can see the set of suites that correspond to products. And on the right side, you can see the set of first-level sections that correspond to components. This way, we established a mapping between functionality and tests, making it clear where to find tests for each scope. It's important to note that we forbidden to create a new test suites for products for teams. This could only be done by requests for an administrator. This safeguarded us against the situation where our established hierarchy of test library could be disrupted over time. The only issue that entire setup in TestRail doesn't allow us is to restrict the editing or deleting permissions within test suites. Permissions apply to all projects in TestRail. Therefore, any user can edit or even delete tests from suites related to another teams and scopes. This is a significant drawback. And another challenge was configuring the set of fields and parameters for the test case. At this stage, it's crucial to carefully consider all possible use cases for test cases. For example, you might want to execute all UI test cases for a specific product or component that are not automated at the same point of time. And your set of parameters for test case should allow you to filter your test library and identify such cases. Or you might want to understand what percentage of your tests for a specific scope at any level of time or at any level of testing parameters should be executed. TestRail should make these tasks simple through search functionality. In our project, we anticipated all such potential use cases, defined the minimal necessary set of parameters for this case, determined which parameters should be required. This is important to ensure consistent data, and wrapped all parameters into a unified test case template. All our teams now use this template. As a result, all test cases have a standardized format, regardless of which teams create them. On the slide, you can see our test case template. One thing to note is that some of the data in TestRail fields is not static and can change over time. For example, a set of products and components, team names, and so on. It's important to think about how to keep these values up to date. Currently, this process is not automated for us, and administrators are responsible for maintaining accuracy. However, we have a plan to automate this task. And next stage of the implementation process was the creation of a guide covering all processes related to using TestRail. We identified several key processes related to the use of TestRail and documented them. There was test case creation and execution processes, results analysis, reporting, and maintenance processes. The first process is related to creation new test cases or editing existing ones. We made an effort to describe all possible use cases that users may encounter. For example, when it's necessary to create a new test case or edit an existing one, what parameters need to be specified in the test case, how to find the right place in the library to add a test case, how to go through test case review process if it's required, how to import test cases from Excel, or how to import UI automation tests from Git, and so on and so forth. We also outlined the principles of navigation within the library so that any user can find the tests they needed. I'd like to know that according to our setup, a test case and TestRail can be created in 4 different ways. First way is manually created through the TestRail interface. This is the most basic and typical scenario. Second way, an API automation test in JSON format can be imported into TestRail using the TestRail plugin for IDEA. Similarly, a UI automation test in Gherkin format can be imported. And the last option is to import a test case in CSV format using TestRail's built-in functionality. Details regarding each of these methods for creating test cases were documented in our guideline. The next crucial process is the execution strategy. We have bi-monthly release cycles. Each release cycle consisting of a development phase and product stabilization phase, including regression testing and UAT testing. All these phases are executed in different environments. Based on this, we built an execution strategy. Firstly, for each product release, we created a separate milestone. Testing phases like development testing, regression testing, and UAT testing were broken down into sub-milestones. This allowed us to gather status both for the entire release and for each individual phase. In the slide, you can see an example of what our milestone looks like. The release 89 is a milestone for the release version, and each sub-milestone corresponds to a testing phases of that version. Progress of testing can be viewed for each testing phase as well as the overall testing for the release. Speaking about execution results, in our setup, there are several ways to set testing results for test cases. The first and the most common method is manual results entry through the TestRail interface. Additionally, after each run of API or UI after tests, the results are automatically imported into TestRail after each centralized run in pipeline. As a result, we can gather statistics such as number of tests executed during each phase, their execution results, how many of them were executed automatically, and how many were executed manually. The next important process is related to tracking the testing status and analysis of results. As I mentioned earlier, TestRail within our setup allows us to track the status and results of testing across different testing phases. TestRail also has built-in reporting functionality, but to be honest, it's not very user-friendly and has limited capabilities. In other words, TestRail reporting doesn't allow us to obtain all the necessary metrics and analytics we need. That's why we are currently working on developing a separate custom report in Power BI that will meet all our analytics requirements. And the last process I'd like to mention is maintenance. As I mentioned earlier, not all support activities are currently automated. Therefore, there are some manual activities that TestRail administrators perform. Here are a couple of examples. Creation of milestones and sub-milestones, updating data in custom fields for test cases, such as product name, components, and so on, and assigning necessary roles for new users. Additionally, in the case of any issues with TestRail, administrators get involved in resolving these issues or escalate this to TestRail support. After all the processes were designed and documented, we created a demo project in TestRail, simulating the process of working with tests, executions, reports, and so on. Subsequently, this project was performed and presented to the decision makers as a proof of concept. After receiving feedback, we made further refinements to the process, obtained approvals, and began working on the onboarding strategy. The next important stage of the implementation was dedicated to migrating test cases from all existing sources into TestRail. We had 4 main sources for test cases. First source is QA Space, which contains around 120K test cases. API automated tests in JSON formats stored into Git repository, around 41K of such tests. UI automated tests in Gherkin format, also stored in Git repository with approximately 16K of tests. And some teams stored their test cases as a local Excel files. And the exact number of such test cases was unknown. Each type of test required a unique approach to migration. The most challenging part was migrating tests from QA Space. During the analysis of these tests, it was discovered that around 40% of tests were not unique. Duplicates of test cases were created earlier due to an error in QA Space. Additionally, approximately 7% of tests were corrupted and couldn't be opened through the QA Space interface. Within the support of QA Space development team, a solution was found how to fix the corrupted tests. The involvement of teams to correct these test cases was required. As for the duplicated tests, the decision was to migrate them to TestRail, and teams would review these tests and delete the duplicates themselves in TestRail. A migration script was developed for the test case migration process. After the first iteration of test migration, a correctness was checked and several issues were identified and resolved. In the second iteration of TestRail migration, it was confirmed that our script was working correctly. Additional important point, teams transition to TestRail was happened into 2 cycles. Some teams moved to TestRail at one period of time, while others moved to TestRail in a different period of time. Therefore, we had a period when the new test cases were created in both tools, QA Space and TestRail. Due to this reason, our migration strategy involved initial performance of full migration of all test cases, and after the last team completed onboarding, we migrated the delta of test cases created in QA Space after the previous migration. Next type of test for migrating was API tests. The challenge with migration them was that they didn't have a direct mapping to products and components. This made this migration difficult because there are no way to determine which test suite to import in which test case should be imported to which test suite. For this reason, it was decided not to perform automatic migration and leave this to be done manually by teams using TestRail plugin for IDEA. Our task was to ensure that all teams imported their TestRail into their IP tests into TestRail. The same approach was applied for the import of UI automated tests. They were also manually imported by teams using TestRail plugin for IDEA during the transition to TestRail. This approach allows teams to control over the where UI autotests are allocated within TestRail and ensure proper organization and test management. When it comes to import test cases from Excel, teams also perform these tasks manually. However, we prepared a standardized template for importing that allowed them to import tests into TestRail within minimal effort. This template included predefined columns and formats that made the import process straightforward and consistent across teams. Finally, we approached the beginning of the team onboarding process. we decided to select 5 Scrum teams from different streams and roles as the early adopted group. Their task was to go through the onboarding process and start using TestRail for 3 sprints. After this period, we gathered feedback from these teams and ensured that the setup and processes we had designed were suitable for their use. Following the completion of the pilot period, we proceed with onboarding all the remaining teams. I'd like to remind that at that time, we had approximately 30 Scrum teams from various locations. The onboarding process consisted of 2 sessions, which were recorded as videos. Reviewing these recordings is a mandatory part of the onboarding plan for each new QA engineer. After completing the onboarding sessions, we migrated the delta of test cases and switched QA space to read-only mode. From that point of time, all new test cases could be created only in TestRail. And finally, I would like to say that we established the TestRail community where teams could ask questions, get answers, and share best practices. Regarding all the subsequent activities that teams had to perform after transition to the new tool, Kiryl, as a QA lead in one of the team, will provide further details. Kiryl, please, the stage is yours.
Thank you, Yuri. So let's proceed with adoption. So I'd like to remind you that at the time, so as mentioned in context of our presentation, at the time we've developed a model for the adoption process of TestRail consisting of 5 parts. It's onboarding, post-migration, reviewing and updating, starting usage, and evaluation. And now it's on the left entrusted this plan directly to the teams, and during the pilot team launch, all that remained for the teams to do was to correctly construct the adoption process without missing any details. And as my team was one of the first teams who tried to pass all the stages of TestRail adoption, so we've had the following set up before start. It was like 3 QAs involved, about 1,600 UI after tests, and 2,500 of API auto tests to migrate, and approximately estimations within up to 3 months. And yeah, we had no idea at that time what is TestRail in practical terms at all. So we were able to start with pretty clear drawn up plan for the adoption that includes objectives, milestones, and timeline, selected champions for each area that should be done. Looking into each part, one by one, we got the next thing that firstly, during training and onboarding stage, we started the adoption process by taking training for all team members to familiarize them with TestRail's features and functionality, address questions and concerns about the transition. This training covered the basics of TestRail as well as more advanced topics such as customization and reporting. Then, during the remaining data migration and after everyone had a good understanding of TestRail, we began migration of existing test cases and data from the previous test management tool to TestRail. We had ensured that data integrity and accuracy during the migration and created a checklist of the steps involved in the migration process to make sure that nothing was missed. Thirdly, during the customization stage, once our test cases were migrated to TestRail, we began using the system in our daily work, and we tailored TestRail to match the team's workflow and requirements by configuring test library structure, test suites, and user roles accordingly. And finally, during the evaluation, we were regularly asking for feedback from the team on how TestRail is working for them to make sure any necessary further adjustments is needed. We also analyzed data on system usage, and based on our findings, we made some changes to our TestRail configuration and training materials. And next is like summary. In conclusion, we can say that this migration to a new tool was a team effort that was fully done within 12 months, with involving over 100 plus testing engineers. Within that move, we migrated over 180,000 test cases to a new system. And as for now, we've been using the tool for more than 1 year and have received only positive feedback from teams across the project. Likewise, we have been able to increase the size of our test library in amount of 30,000 of test cases. Therefore, TestRail has helped us to improve the efficiency and effectiveness of our testing process, and we are now able to better manage our test cases, track our progress, and generate reports. So, and finally, at the end of our today's session, we've prepared some slides with essential actions that are going to help you in case you need to switch to a new test management tool. There are 3 slides covering all stages, and here is investigation stage, implementation stage, and adoption stage. You'll receive the full presentation after the session, so you'll be able to go through the sections. And that seems that's all what we wanted to share with you today. Thank you, Slava. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you, guys, for sharing fascinating insights on your own story. And as I see, any person who face the same problem can get comprehensive information by watching your talk. So, dear audience, before we move to the Q&A session, please welcome to ask your questions for our speakers. And before we move to it, please scan this QR code to rate our event and recognize our speakers by providing them badges if you like the talk. And I think we can move to the Q&A session. And the first question will be from my side. Guys, you have worked together on one project for some time, and you been involved into migration of a large amount of test cases. From your point of view, what was the key factor that allowed this initiative to have a happy ending?
So from my part of this migration is about plan. So we need to have a plan because of big organization. You cannot do things on the fly, and being patient because again, it's about big project. It's about a lot of stakeholders. You need to consider all use cases, all points of view. So I would say there's 2 parts, like plan and being patient.
I'd like to add 2 additional points. First point, this is a support from teams. I mean, support is this is a negative feedback from using the current tool, and we have a lot of issues with it, as we mentioned in our presentation, and it was the one point that helped us. The second. Some years ago, we started initiative for increasing our automation coverage, and we hadn't a chance to collect statistics about how many test cases we had for particular product or component, how many of them are automated, how many of them are executed manually, and so on and so forth. And it was an initiative from on the leadership side, and it was the second. It make an impact to the happening in the new tool in our teams. So
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much for the answer. Dear participants, please welcome to leave your questions. We will address them to our speakers. We have some time for this event. Please use our chat. Let's wait maybe for a couple of minutes. And I noticed that there were a lot of challenges here on this way that you passed through. But finally everything went well. Okay, so we have one question from Evgeny. Guys, have you managed to import the results of automation tests from the report portal into TestRail?
Yeah, I'd like to answer. Yes, we incorporated this solution into our test management process, and we, after each execution of auto tests, no matter it's UI auto test or REST, execution results are sent in from report portal to TestRail. And on each period of time, we can observe how many test cases were executed and results for these test cases.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Other questions? You can also leave your questions in our VIA community platform for this particular event, and I think speakers will be able to answer them later. Okay, so we have one more question. You guys, you did a great job. Question from Yuri. What tools were the TestRail compared to before the final decision made? I think it has been covered, yeah.
Yeah, I can switch to the slide. So about 20 tools on a high level to understand whether they fit our requirements, especially in terms of performance. So this is a list. I'm not going to mention it, but you can see. And finally, this was the 5 that we selected for deep evaluation and thrown out HP and Zephyr. Zephyr is a plugin. So finally, it was 3 tools, Zephyr, TestRail, and Qtest, that we consider it as a possible solution in our case.
Okay, thank you, Maksim. Okay. So let's wait maybe for one more minute for the final question, if any. Okay, I think that we can finish up. So, dear speakers, thank you so much one more time for joining ProQuality community today as a speakers. And I think that's all that we wanted to share with you guys. So stay tuned, join ProQuality community, in our social networks, and may your test always be flawless. Have a good the rest of the day, guys. See you on our future events. Bye-bye.